Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Above the Bar podcast, a show about a middle-aged father, current events, and how these things affect my everyday life. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Above the Bar podcast. We're bellowing up to the bar right now. Everybody should have your drinks in hand, getting yourself situated here on Hump Day. We have a very special guest with us today. Even the name of her books make her much more intelligent than we are here at the bar. So she's going to educate us. She's going to keep us in line and well informed. We have Miss Regina Hanson. I almost said Henson, like Jim Henson. Miss Regina Hanson. She has written books. She's going to teach most of us men who just lumber through our days about sexual intelligence and women's empowerment. Miss Regina, welcome to the bar.
Hey, Sean, what you drinking?
So we are today. Well, my son was here earlier, my 25-year-old. So we were debating between this new bourbon I really like called Heaven Hill.
Okay.
And the other one that, and then we went for the old standby, which is you can't beat, Buffalo Trace. So, I mean, it was the debate, normally it's Telomar Dew and Stewart's. Stewart's is like an Albany thing. They don't even, that's a whole nother conversation about how they can't say the word Stewart's up here. But the other one is Stewart's cream soda and Telomar Dew. Now I see you got your beverage out before we get ready to do some housekeeping here. What you got there?
I'm being prissy today, and I'm not usually. I'm doing a pink Moscato today, just for convenience sake. But usually, I'm a tequila girl.
Ah, tequila.
That's exactly what I call it, and that's exactly how I pronounce it, tequila.
Oh,
a buddy of mine in Vegas got me on a coconut tequila a few years back.
Now that's that's a whole nother conversation about like the like flavoring of liquors that aren't normally like different flavors. Cause I'll show you one I got here under the bar here in a moment. But before we get into it, as we always do, folks, we got to do a little bit of housekeeping. First things first, over my right shoulder here, we got the board with the Baltimore Raven on there, and I got some interesting news in some upcoming months. But the Raven's up there. We're going to do sticker and a cause. Now, Regina doesn't know what sticker and a cause is, so we'll educate her on that. So sticker and a cause is my thing, where if you have any kind of a cause, any kind of thing that you're into, maybe it's you got a sticker for your book. You got a sticker for an organization you belong to, whatever it happens to be. If you send me that sticker and a little bit of a write-up on whatever that is, I will read it and then I will put it on the board. And now your sticker and a cause has been read to all 4 of my listeners. I always say there's 4. I have no idea. It's my thing. It's all 4 of them. And that's a whole thing that goes back to growing up in Baltimore. There was a radio station. And I don't know if I ever told this story. It goes back to a Baltimore radio station. It was called B104 when I was a kid. It was a top 40 station. And the morning disc jockeys used to always be like, well, all 4 of our listeners out there. And I would be like, wait a second. I'm in the car listening and my mom's in the car listening. That's 2 people. Who else is listening? Yeah, Dave, we will applaud you, Dave. Right. Dave was one of my Marines for a long time. Send me a message, Dave, and I'll send you a private message. I'll send you the address to send me the sticker. But he's been sober now 7 months, and I'm very proud of him. We will have club soda. We will have club soda or O'Doyle's or whatever it is you need at the bar, absolutely, to take care of you. And the other thing that we all must do is we must share. Share the bar with everyone. Make sure you go onto your phones, whatever you're listening to this on, whether it be YouTube, Facebook, my personal Facebook page, and make sure you share it to every single solitary possible yard sale and whatever other site that you listen to the on and have things on so that they can ban you. That is your only goal, is to get banned from these things, because then they finally realize the bar is taking over. So
Nice.
there, the housekeeping is done. We are sitting down at the bar and we're going to learn about Miss Regina and about sexual intelligence and women's empowerment, because I've got some questions that are more, I guess, for me as a guy. And I want you to tell us about, how many books do you have now?
I only have 2, and I'm working on a 3rd.
So 2 down, 1 to go.
Many more to go, actually.
Many more to go. And now, what's your background for our audience that even got you to be like, yeah, I'm going to write these books about this topic?
I'm from Georgia. I'm a 7th generation Georgian. So I'm very, very Southern. And like most Southern girls, grew up in the church, that conservative lifestyle. I'm now 50. I've never been married. I've never had kids, which this is considered queer in the scholastic community, because I did not comply with social standards and do all those normal things. I went to college late. I was the first college graduate in my family. In my 30s, I got a bachelor's in American history with a minor in women's studies. And then I went on to get a master's in American studies. And that's where I created the term sexual intellectual female, which is the title of the 2nd book, which is what we're talking about today. And I love talking to men about this. And I love talking to the common man about this, because you guys always have a lot of questions. And thus far, I've been really impressed with how everybody sort of takes in what I have to say in the book and otherwise. And they're like, okay, I can apply that. I can see where you're coming from. Because I think with the Me Too movement, there was so much fear that came across our community, with guys being like, whoa, I feel like everything I've ever done is wrong. What's happening? And I think if we can find that common ground, then we can work through it a lot easier. And you said you had a 25-year-old son, correct?
Yes.
Do you have daughters as well, or just sons?
Yes. Well, between my wife and I, we have 8 kids, 6 boys, 2 girls, 2 granddaughters. And, well, you can act, if you really get, God, there's so many kids around here. We are breeders. There is no doubt about it. We are absolutely breeders around here. So yeah, I have 2 daughters. I actually, 2 daughters, one that has two daughters of her own, my 2 granddaughters, and another daughter who we just found out today. Let's see if I get my cheers right. Going to have a grandson. I told her, and see, this is where I'm gonna fall into this category where I have to learn about these things, because in my head she sent me and her mother a text, hey, this is what I found out. I'm like, it's going to be a boy. I will accept it. and that's the way I felt about it. It was funny and she laughed and I was happy about that. But in my mind, I'm like, later on, I thought about this and I'm like, wait a second, I've got Regina on here. Here I am making this joke. And, but is it still an okay joke? In my mind, it was, because I'm a dad and I'm, hey. But I wonder, because you brought up Me Too, and I there's so much into this as I wouldn't say a meathead, but I spent 20 years in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And when I came out, one of the toughest things for me to do was, for lack of better, speak civilian. And it might sound like an odd thing to say, but we insult each other in the service in a way that, when people are like, you can't say that, we're like, what are you talking about? I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about him.
Right.
And I've had to learn different languages. And it was, for a lot of service members, it is a challenge. But you brought up the Me Too movement. Do you feel like any of that has lost any steam of late? Like, once we put away the big baddies, like Weinstein and folks like that, I mean, is it lost any steam?
I don't think so. And before we launch into that question, I want to respond to what you were saying earlier about your joke. First and foremost, if we don't keep a sense of humor in life, we're lost. I mean, it's not going to be any fun to be here, right? So I'm going to totally give you a pass on that joke, and let me explain why. He's giving me the thumbs up, folks, if you
Here
can't
we
see
go.
that.
Yeah.
Sean's giving me the thumbs up.
Get another. This is all about the applause today, folks.
You know, I have a very sarcastic sense of humor, so I can assure you that I've said a lot of things that probably would make you blush. And I'm not going to apologize for any of that because I'm here to enjoy life. All right. But my father had 2 daughters, and he was a Southern man. You handed down property to your children, you passed that lineage on. And that was a really tough thing for him to have 2 daughters, and neither of the daughters had sons. So that's it for the Hanson line, you know? And even in my subconscious mind, I think there was I'm Hanson. I don't ever want to get married and change my name.
You're proud of it.
I'm very proud of my name and my history and all that sort of thing. And I just feel like where you're coming from is a very natural, and there's nothing anti-feminist about it. Of course you want a grandson. Of course you want to see your line continue with that family name. I mean, the cool part is now you have a lot of women who are like, I like being a Hanson. I'm not going to change it. And they move forward in that way, but their child still bears their husband's name, right?
Right.
So, yeah, we can't be too hard on ourselves in the sense of what we've always known, because this is one thing I've learned along the way. To me, this is my best lesson in life that helps me continue to grow and evolve. Every person on this earth is a culmination of their life experiences, and none of us get away from that. So you're a Baltimore man, you're a Marine, you're a father, you're a grandfather, and all of that makes up who you are. But it doesn't mean you're not going to continue to grow and evolve because you've got granddaughters and you've got a grandson. And guess what? Each of those experiences and each of those relationships is going to tweak you even more.
Well, they're going to tweak me.
But you're going to continue to grow and evolve and like learn stuff from them that maybe you didn't with your daughters and sons. It's life. We can't beat ourselves up about it. We just have to do the best we can with what we've got as we go.
I wish I could high five you right now. We could just virtual high five this thing. But it's, you know, it's one of those things. And I really, you know, I've given it a lot of thought. And it's funny you mentioned the name thing. So when my wife and I married, she had a life before me. She established a career before me. And she'll probably correct me here in a minute, but I remember having the conversation and being like, it came up and I was like, I don't expect you to take my name. You know, I'd ask you to hyphenate, but I don't expect you to take my name. In your career, people know you as this person. Your career is built on that. There is nothing else but that as your name. So why would you take my name just for people to ask for somebody else and then confuse them and then change things? It's not necessary. You're that person. You know, but I also get the changing of the name. Like I know the history of it. I know it was almost like an exchange of property kind of a mentality. I know that history of it, but I think with today, I also know that I look at it differently because now it shows the blending of families. That's the way I look at it today. What's your thoughts on that? Because you brought the name thing, and I'm like, I love that. That's like one of those. So that's one of those like very. And I promise, Regina, I'm going to make you a promise. You know what I will not say to you today?
Tell me.
Bless your heart.
Hey, I'm not going to promise you.
For those of you who don't know, and I got to get into this. So Miss Regina and I had a good conversation before the show. I educated her on what a cicada is. She did not know what a cicada was. And then I had to show her that I had some Southern roots by letting her know that I do know what bless your heart is. And for those of you that don't, take a moment, go online and just look up the term bless your heart. Anytime someone's ever said that to you now, you will just think back to those moments and be like, son of a.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your thoughts then, Miss Regina, on that? Like now that it's not really an exchange of property the way it used to be, is it a way to show a blending of families?
Yeah. I mean, this is just my personal opinion on it. And the older I get, the lazier I get. I've liked for the last decade or so the hyphen thing. That makes sense to me because, like you said, if I've lived 50 years with my last name, that's how people know me. And if I decide that I'm going to commit to somebody for the rest of my life, then I do like the idea of hyphenating it. But this is the thing. It's such a pain in the butt.
To go through the process of changing it.
Everything. Oh. Your license, this, Social Security card. I mean, and then if the relationship goes south, it's a nightmare to switch it back.
Right. There's no easy, flip it, but it's not like Facebook where you're like, today my name will be.
Right.
It's a whole process. So Dave's brought this question up twice and he's very curious here. He wants to know, do you feel like today's feminists, which seem less about this is his thoughts, feel less about raising women up and more about degrading men in order to raise women up? Does that, you understand what he's asking?
I do. It's a great question. Thank you for asking it, David. And I saw the first one because he was talking about the difference between feminists today and feminists 20 years ago. So we can definitely delve into that. For me, I hate it when men feel attacked. I don't ever want a man to feel attacked by a feminist. That's not what it's about. And a point that I try to make often with my guy buddies is patriarchy has negatively affected you as well. Okay? It hasn't just subjugated women. It's kept men from being able to be real.
What do you mean?
Our culture is, and as a Marine, I really feel like as a Marine, you can appreciate what I'm saying here. You understand man up to the nth degree, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And we all grew up hearing that phrase, even for little boys who might get physically hurt on the playground, man up, don't shed a tear, don't show any emotion. Well, that wreaks havoc on your relationships, whether it's with your wife or your kids. A lot of men, and my father was this way. My dad was the best dad in the world. I have no father or daddy issues whatsoever. My dad was the man, okay? Beyond a shadow of a doubt. He was a man's man. He never showed emotion. He was in the Army in Korea. Phenomenal provider for our family. Was just a saint with my mother, even when she didn't deserve it. And yet he was never able to show affection with his children, with his daughters. I think he held a lot in, and he died from cancer. And he and my mother had a bit of a tumultuous relationship. She was in love with another man the whole 54 years.
Oh, wow.
So he dies of cancer, then she gets cancer and dies 3 years later. And I'm standing outside this situation looking in going, y'all were holding so much resentment in because you never had those important conversations. You never shed the tears. You never showed the emotion. You were never allowed to be my father could have had a phenomenal career as a musician.
Really?
He was, have you ever heard of Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys?
Well, I don't know Bob Wills, but I know the Texas Playboys. I know that part.
That Western swing vibe. Dad was a great player. And he loved everything from Bob Wills to Chuck Berry and played it all. If he had not been so committed to us, he could have easily been on the road doing his thing.
Wow.
Being a little rock star. But instead, he was committed to us. And so a big part of my book is women grow up being told you need to get married and be taken care of or be a great mom. And they don't ever spend any time finding out who they are or what they want. You have a lot of people having children that shouldn't have, like my mom. My mother should have never had kids. My sister would tell you the same thing.
Hey. Then we couldn't be having this talk.
That's true. Thank you. Thank you for reeling me back in.
Bring it back.
Bring it back. So, but there's a lot of that going on. A lot of toxic relationships because people aren't taught to process their emotions in a healthy way and keep it real. And so I don't want any guys to feel like they're being attacked by feminists And some feminists are really pissed because they've just taken some courses and they realize what subjugation and patriarchy are, and they're going to lay it on you. And I would suggest that you either buy them a shot of tequila or walk away.
They've done well. See, that's that. I have one son that goes to college in next year, and it's funny you say that. So we just had this conversation, and what you remind me of is that person who got their first taste of, I don't want to call it free learning, but that different college level learning where you can take a class and they're like, did you know this is what the world's about? And I'm like, yeah, that's part of it. I mean, do you know the whole? Yeah, that's absolutely true. I've had conversations not long ago. A guy I went to high school with, good dude named Ira, probably 10 years ago almost, educated me on Black Wall Street.
Yeah.
And it was 10 years ago. He was like, he posted something. And I'm like, bro, what is this? He's like, you need to read. And I read, I'm a big, like, if you tell me something, I'm going to read about it. I want to figure it out, because I hate to be, I don't need to know it all. I just hate to be the guy that doesn't know. That's what's important about like this. So I'm listening to this. I'm like, hey, what is this? I need to know more about this and what this is about. And it's just, and you brought up, so then what, I guess it's a hard way to put, I guess the best way to put it is, what's a good feminist then? Does that make sense? Like,
ooh, that's a great question.
So what's a good, like, cause you're mentioning things. And I think, and Dave kind of mentioned it, we see these like crazy things, like people wearing the vagina hat and, these different things, the bachelor party, like we get told we're horrible people. Why didn't you open the door? You need to do this for us. And then turn around and you, as a man, and we're like, oh, well, shit, I better do all those things. And then you're like, wait a sec. Aren't you the one that I just saw doing, like, you just posted 4 TikTok videos where you were shaking your backside and all these other things. And then you're going to get, that's where he's wondering. And I know that's where he's going, because he posted something else here, talking about the straws at the bachelor parties and all those things. Like, where do we, and I think I know I'm talking a lot. I don't normally talk as much, but you got me going here. You got my juices flowing. So I think where a lot of this is there is a difference between out having a good time, being a good person, and then just completely forgetting that the person you're talking to is a human and a person and has innate human rights. And you can't, as a person, flip the switch just because you didn't like that somebody said something to you. Now it's going to matter to you. Am I on the right page? Or am I all jacked up?
Well, what you're saying is pretty brilliant. I just want to clarify it to be sure I'm understanding it the way you're intending it. Okay. So we're all human beings. And I love that you said that, because we have to remember that when we start trying to communicate our thoughts and ideas to other people. Even if we don't agree with what the other person's saying, we still need to respect it. And if it really gets our blood boiling, we need to walk away. And I'm the queen of walking away. My advocacy is through my pen. I write. You can scream it's a cop-out if you want to. It is. I don't have to engage with anyone. I can listen to your podcast first and see if you're going to be too much for me and say, no, thank you. Or I think this guy will be fun. Let's see where it goes. But there is no good feminist and no bad feminist. I think I have an idea of what David means. I think David has the same thought process and perceptions that I did growing up, because I was raised in the South in the church. And women are supposed to be good. We're nurturers. We're natural mothers. Part of the problem with that is we end up being taught and believing that we're here to please men, that we don't have a right to a healthy, happy sex life, that we're just supposed to be procreating, and we don't have anything for ourselves. And that's not healthy. So David is, I think, where I was a few years ago, trying to learn, because I'm not going to wear a vagina hat. A vagina hat's not me. But there is no such thing as a good feminist or a bad feminist. There's a pissed feminist and a calm feminist. Some women are more angry about what's happening and more reactionary. It's not my personal temperament to walk in a parade or wear a vagina hat, but I will absolutely defend to
Please
the day
wear a vagina hat,
I
Regina. I would so laugh. You just don't seem like the person. Like, I've seen your pictures. They're like waterfalls and like you got your sassy pants on and you're like laid out and all that. If I saw you with one of those on, I'd be like, somebody put her up to that shit.
Somebody paid her.
She got paid for that.
She needed to pay rent, and they gave her some cash. It's just not, pink's not my color. It's not that pink's not my color. It's not. But that's just not my style.
Right.
Am I the occasional leopard print legging girl? Absolutely.
Right. But we all want to look good.
Huh?
But we all want to. So I mean, if that makes you feel good, I get that. I love wearing a suit. There is nothing better to me as a man wearing a suit with a nice pair of shoes on. I'm a Bay Rum guy. A buddy that came on the show, Phoenix Shaving, he got me into all his products. I'm a big Bay Rum guy. My wife likes it. So I'm all about, I get what you're saying. Like, you can still, and I know where Dave's going with this, because it can feel attacking as a man. He said it all seems hypocritical. It can feel attacking as a man when we're like, well, wait a sec. I love my wife. I love my daughters. Yeah, sorry I made an off-color joke. My bad. I didn't realize it would come off offensive. But I know it can feel that way. So I guess the other side to the coin is, and I know how I would answer this, but what are we supposed to do as men when we feel that attacking feeling, like being blamed for something where we're like, hey, I met you 20 minutes ago. I was trying to be nice. Why am I being attacked for what you got left at the senior prom? I ain't got nothing to do with that. Like, what are we supposed to do?
Also, another good question. And I want to respond here because David just commented, it all seems hypocritical, though. It isn't hypocritical when a woman is taking possession and ownership of her body and her right to use it or display it in any way she wants. And that's absolutely a woman's right. It's bodily autonomy. And a lot of your feminists, this is number one on their agenda list, right? But you're talking about, I'm going to give an example and you tell me if I'm wrong. Maybe you're in a bar and you say something to a woman and she gives you a reaction that shocks you. Is that what you're talking about? Something like that?
Right. Like he just actually, it's funny. He makes the comment of, a woman wears something revealing and a man looks at her and she says, you have no right to look at me like that. I'll answer that for you, Dave. She didn't wear that for you. She was looking for another guy and she caught you looking. And that was the reaction. That was the reaction is she wasn't interested in you. So that was a way of blowing you off. Sorry, Dave, you got blown off. You're not that cute.
Oh, don't tell David he's not cute.
I've known him for a long time. He ain't that cute.
This is my thought on that. And again, this is coming from a woman's perspective. So a part of what we're sharing today is I'm able to give you that insight that you have.
This is fascinating to me. Regina, thank you so much. And folks, as we're listening to this, please take a moment, write down personalempowermentpublishing.com. Take a look at what Regina's got out there. She's got 2 books, a third on the way. I'm going to plug it here for a moment before we get into more of this. Personalempowermentpublishing.com. It's not personal women's empowerment. It's not personal men's empowerment. It's personalempowermentpublishing.com. Take a read of it. Take a look and see what's out there. I'm being educated right now. I am such the typical Yahoo. I'm being educated right now. No, I'm not a basic bro, but I am, a basic dad.
Beautiful. So I want to get into that, and it's going to get a little heavy. So if you want to pull us out of this at any time, he physically pulls back from the screen, folks. Did y'all see that?
For those of you watching, I have to get back for a moment. It's going to get heavy.
If you want to pull us out, you can. But this is the best way I know to describe this and to give David a little bit more insight as to what women are carrying, because I think that's very important regarding feminist and women's perspectives and how men can better interact with women and not feel attacked or like they're getting those really intense reactions, because I can have them too. Now, I shared with you earlier, I'm 50, okay? Somewhere between a 4 and a 6. I've held on pretty well, but that's because I haven't had kids. I'll be the first one to
Kids are
say
destructive in all ways.
But beautiful. And when I was 7 years old, I was molested. Now, I've been corrected by a doctor lately. I was raped. But it's taken me, my life to process all of that. So I'm molested as a child, which has absolutely affected every relationship I've ever had, even though I had the sense to know what most young girls and boys don't know, which is it wasn't my fault. I did have the sense to know that. But I also have a little bit of innocence about me when I'm out and about in the world. I have a very open, loving spirit. I like people. I like to make people laugh and smile. So if we're in a store or we go to the liquor store to pick up a bottle, if there's an opportunity to say something funny, I'm going to. Maybe somebody's going to take that as flirting. Maybe they're not. But this is my biggest problem in life, even as a 50-year-old woman. And it scares me and it shocks me because in my mind, I should be past this type of behavior at this point in my life. I can go to Ross. I can go to the grocery store. And, I'm a leggings girl. So I'll be in leggings and a tennis shoe, a baggy shirt, not a tight shirt. And men will leer at me. And I don't mean one man every few weeks. I mean 90% of the time, I don't get out of the store without one or more men. Even in a Ross, think about that, leering at me.
For those of you who don't know what Ross is, up north we have TJ Maxx and Marshalls, and then down south they have Ross. They're actually all three are owned by the exact same company.
Correct. Impressed that you know that, Sean. We should have stock in that, but we don't.
Yes, right.
So I'm in Ross and I have my little buggy and I'm going to get in line. And this man starts walking towards me. I can already tell by the way he's looking at me that he's eyeing me. So I'm trying to kind of gear my cart in between the space between he and I so he doesn't get too close. He comes around the cart, leans into me. He's probably about 1.5 feet from me and grunts. In my ear.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh, but look, gentlemen, if you've ever walked next to a woman and grunted at her and she answered to that grunt, you should marry her. Because I'm going to tell you right now, that has never worked as a pickup line.
Hey, it wasn't a sexy grunt like that, Sean.
Just like
it was like a bear or some kind of dog. It was gross.
I'm sorry.
It's for me as a woman. I mean, my mother was a natural redhead. I'm Revlon number 55. Okay.
Gotcha.
So, but I have every bit of that temperament, and I'm a little backwoods country girl, so I can get riled up quick. Okay. And I turned around and looked at him like I was about to bow up and knock him out. Right. I was like, "Excuse me?" Then his wife and 2 small children come around the corner. He's got one kid about 3 and one about 5. And he turns away from me. He's like, "Oh, hey, honey, do you want those shoes? Yeah, I'll get y'all those shoes. Come." And pulls them in closer. And I was like, dude, they just saved your life. Because I was about to go off. Now, if I could say that happens to me once a decade, I'd be happy. That sort of thing happens to me continuously. I will get leered at to the point of having to turn around and look at a guy with the look. It's why I don't carry a gun. I believe that everybody's right to bear arms. I supported 110%. I don't carry a gun.
So that's all right. That's interesting that you said. All right, hold on, Dave. Let's fix Dave for a second here. Yes, Dave. If you were cute, if you want to know the answer to this question, Dave, after the show's over with, always after the show is over with, go online, look up Tom Brady Saturday Night Live office skit, where every time anybody comes near the women in the office, they chase them off, and they're like, it's like back in the Amy Poehler days. And as soon as Tom Brady walks in, he's like, "Hey, you want to go get lunch and we'll hang out afterwards?" And they're all like, "Yes, absolutely,
Oh, yeah,
yes," because
nice.
it does have that effect. I'll be look there's absolutely, and my most favorite is Amanda Love. I'm speaking for you also. If you tell me, Amanda, that grunting at another man has ever worked for you, I will laugh so hard at you. Tom says he has interest. See, Tom was somebody that really is probably one of the more intelligent people, and like yourself, has like educated me on the different subjects, different things. I've always felt about myself, there's certain things I'm probably locked in pretty tightly on that you're just not going to change my opinion about. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that I refuse to be so mentally just block it out, because something that came to mind while we're talking about this, and Dave, there are double standards. There will always be double standards. You and I, exactly like you said, you and I are not getting past that bouncer. When you worked at City Tavern, it was probably a thing. We're not getting past that bouncer. Because he talks about it. Women would constantly touch and grope him when he was a bouncer, and it seemed to be okay with it around them. Imagine if a man did that in the same room. You're absolutely right, bro. You are 110% right. It's not acceptable. I just did my sexual harassment training for my job, and it was interesting to me. And have you ever taken any recent training? I don't know if you would have any reason to take these trainings recently, Regina.
I probably took one of the first ones decades ago in corporate America, and there were nothing then like they are now, I'm sure. So I need to catch up.
And it was probably it was a man harassing a woman. It was a man making a comment after a drink with a woman. That's the way they were in the Marine Corps. It was always a man doing something to a woman. Not the ones that, like, I just did one the other day for New York State, and I was actually impressed by it. And because it was very much women harassing men. It was very much men harassing men. It was all these different scenarios that we see today and are finally, we've opened our eyes. I hate the word woke. I hate the word woke. It's so stupid.
You don't have to use it if you don't want to.
Oh, I won't. But it's a realization of the society around us, and us, maturing as people and saying that, because I've looked back at things that I didn't know as kids, and something you bring up in this whole thing of, you mentioned about being a Southern woman. You were required to make a home. You should have had children. By now, you should be talking to your children about grandchildren. You've screwed the whole thing up, Regina. I can't believe you.
I should be having grandchildren.
Wait a second. It should have been this one. That's for you. You messed the whole thing up. You got the whole thing wrong. But you know what? One of the things that as men that we don't talk enough about is, I grew up, I'm of the generation G.I. Joe, He-Man, what's the other one? Thundar the Barbarian, all these big, meaty, meathead guys, or TV series where, Tim Taylor, Tim the Tool Man, even shows like that where we were, I'm not a man if I'm not, my traps aren't so big that I can't hear anymore because they're blocking my ears. I'm not a man if I can't do these things. And look, I'm very comfortable with myself. I spent anyone wants to throw cards, we're good with it. See who's got the man card. But it's interesting how you bring that up about women. Is there, as a man, do we have a version of, see, it wouldn't be feminist, but, and I couldn't say maninist, that doesn't even make sense. But is there a version of that for us?
Okay, this may be not what you want to hear, but this is.
No, please, I want to hear it.
And I touched on it earlier, but I honestly believe this, Sean, or I wouldn't be saying it. I believe that feminism is for men and women. I believe that the patriarchal system and the history that we've all experienced and come from has limited all of us, whether you're a man or a woman. It really has. It's messed with us. And there are some people that are meant to be fathers. There are some people that are meant to be Marines. And you know this because you served. There are some people that should never be drafted. They are not mentally or physically capable of being a soldier. But there's a woman around the corner that is.
You're absolutely right. I've had this draft conversation more times than you can imagine. I don't think most people realize that our current military system has never existed or in the history of the planet. Any country to have a 100% voluntary military service that you weren't forced into, you weren't drafted into, that we continue to have people to join. And every so often I get these people that'll say things to me like, Psh, we need to draft. Everyone needs to serve. And I'm like, nope. As a gunnery sergeant in the Marine Corps, I'll be damned if I want to deal with your knucklehead brother who really don't want to be there and is going to make my life that much more difficult. I'm very like, no, not today. We ain't doing that.
For me, it's not even about the guy who doesn't want to be there. It's about the guy who thinks he's doing the right thing because his dad told him to, or it's a family thing, and he's not mentally capable of being a soldier. We got way too many people homeless living on the streets with PTSD that just didn't have what it took. And I'm not saying that in an ugly way. I don't want to offend anybody at all.
We understand.
I'm telling you right now, I could have never been a soldier. I know that about myself. I don't.
Me either. I was a Marine.
I'm a straight shooter. I started shooting at 10. I'll go to the shooting range with you and do pretty well, even though I haven't picked a gun up in about probably 15 or 16 years. But everybody isn't meant to do that. So if we can all understand that feminism is really more anti-patriarchy than anti-men, I know a whole lot more feminists that love men than.
So define what you mean by this, because you've mentioned it a couple of times, and we're not hearing a definition of the patriarchal system that you're referring to. And Amanda, you're right. Dave, you're never going to see that commercial that you're mentioning. He's talking about commercials where dads spend more time with your kids and that women, because it doesn't sell. I've said this 100 times. New York State has horrible laws for child support and for men's rights. We can talk about that's a whole conversation in and of itself. I've talked to senators, congressmen. The only person ever in this state that has ever tried to do anything was Larry Sharp, but no one's going to touch it because it's the holy hand grenade. Even our own senators, particularly what the hell's his name? He's a New York senator. I can't think of his name. He's always on TV with Chuck Schumer. I sent Chuck Schumer's office a message one day about the child support laws, and one of his peons sent me a message back and goes, "That's a state's issue, not a federal issue." And then I had to send him a message back and go, "Actually, it's tied into the Social Security system, and it's actually written into the laws for Social Security that every state must come up with a system. So it's actually federal." And she was like, "Oh, well, let him know." I'm like, so twit, you're the same one that read a book one time and you think you know what it is, but you really don't. But you can get me off on a hard right tangent. That's bad. It's all bad. I'll finish both of these bottles of bourbon. It'll be all bad. I'll be slurring all over the place. But yes, I'm a very But I've talked to them. It's the holy hand grenade because no state is ever going to change their child support laws as long as you can turn a single person into a Social Security system that the state doesn't have to be burdened with. And I'm not saying all of us are good. Look, I talk to people all day long, and I've talked to plenty that are like, yeah, I've worked under the table for the last 10 years, so I didn't have to pay that. What do you mean you didn't have to pay that? You have children. You were there. Those are your kids. Take care of your children. Dave takes care of his kids, so he gets upset about it. I understand it. I know a lot of guys that get upset about it. And then Amanda, I just love my Amanda Love. Do you think take a look at that picture right now? I need you to look at that picture for a moment, Regina. Do you think how attractive do you think Amanda Love is?
I can't see it up close, but all women are beautiful to me.
Well, that's my son's grandfather.
So yes, Amanda looks very striking in her photograph, although it's very small at the bottom of the screen. And I would much prefer to meet her in person because let me tell you something, a woman's essence is her power. And I talked about this in the book. The energy you put out is just as important, if not more so, than how you're dressed, your physique, whatever. When you fall in love with somebody, you're not falling in love with the color of their hair. You're falling in love with their soul. And if you think you're falling in love with their body, could be lust. Just going to throw that out there a little bit. But I want to address David's thing. We're getting off topic.
I know. I'm sorry. Like we're plenty of left turns today on this show. I knew we were going to left turn it. You ain't finished that drink yet? You make me feel like a lush tonight.
I'm a sipper. So I understand where David's coming from. And I do want to say that the worst thing we can all do is just be angry with each other because we have a different perspective and never get anywhere. We need to share as much as we can. We need to talk through as much as we can. And that's why I want to be sure and answer as much of David's concerns as possible. Patriarchy. That was a question you asked.
Yeah, I really, because I know what a patriarch and a matriarch are, but when you, in the way you put it, I'm very curious of what you mean by it.
What the patriarchal system has done to us. Think of 1950s America. The man is supposed to be the major breadwinner. The woman is supposed to be the mother and the homemaker. Now, my dad told me in the 80s, he said, we're not living in the 50s anymore. It now takes 2 incomes to own a home and run a household. We don't have one car anymore. We've got 2 or more. And that's true. You're nodding your head. So you're with me.
Absolutely. Right? I'm 100% with you. We couldn't make it around this house if it wasn't for my bride.
Right. So we've moved into this 2 income thing. Now we still have households where men are not helping around the home inside. Maybe now I've got some guys that I know that are great cooks. And so the wife's like, I clean up the kitchen all day long, every day. He cooks. He's great at it. Fantastic. Love those relationships. Do what you're good at. And then I've got just as many friends who are in marriages whose man never cooks, never cleans up after she cooks. She does all the laundry, and we still have that going on. I mean, I think 50 to 60% of the time, I think that's a fair assessment. So the patriarchy has put us in this situation where we're still in our subconscious minds thinking we're living in the 50s, and we're not. And so you've got a man who's probably eaten less than stellar food because he thinks he can't be in the kitchen. When, as a matter of fact, he's the one that should be in the kitchen because his taste buds are supreme and he knows how to season. But he's sitting on the sofa because his wife's supposed to be doing that. You see what I'm saying?
So I've had this conversation before, and you bring up that. So we always hear it's 50-50, 50-50. But what about the idea that your 50 and my 50 can be 100% of something? So in those same scenarios you're talking about, and I don't know those folks. Regina won't invite me over, especially to Atlanta, where we could be going to like Gladys's or my favorite. I got to ask you, this is completely sidebar for a moment. Have you ever been to Chick-fil-A Dwarf House?
No.
It's a Chick-fil-A that serves burgers.
You're making that up.
You want to
That's
put money
not
on
true,
it?
Sean.
You want to put money on it? It is in Atlanta. It is the Chick-fil-A Dwarf House. It is the first
I've
Chick-fil-A
actually heard of
restaurant.
it, and I've been past it, but I've never been into it.
I've been in it. It's amazing. But
Lucky
the idea
man.
that I'm such a fat kid in my soul. But it's this idea that your 50 and my 50 could be 100% of something. So in those same scenarios, if a man says, "Hey, look, I'm gonna go to work. I'm gonna provide for us. I've got that income. I can do those things." And his wife says, you know, and he offers this, and she willingly says, "Okay, then I'm going to take care of the house. I'm going to cook. I'm going to clean. I'm going to do all those things." Is that still are we still following the patriarchy system in that sense, or is this just two people that are like, "Cool, I ain't got to go to work. I'm cool with staying at home, and you like to go to work. Cool, go to work."
This is a powerhouse question, and I love it. I love it because part of my book is saying to young women, be your authentic self. If you were born to be a mother, and I've met those women, I have met women who just love children, are amazing parents, and just want to stay at home and nest and raise those good babies, those good tax-paying citizens that we all appreciate. Please do that. If that's your soul's yearning, then as a sexual intellectual female, I give my 100% kudos to you. I want you to do what fulfills your soul and have a great sex life. Okay, now
we're going to get into that. We're
okay.
we're almost at 9:00, so we'll get into that here soon.
So then, on the other hand, you've got women who do it for a while and they start getting a little depressed. Maybe they're not as intellectually stimulated as they need to be happy. And I have that part of my personality. I really have to keep myself entertained, whether it's reading and research or writing. Being outside in nature is very important to my soul. I just need different things to feed me. And I don't have the type of patience to be a mother that women should have before they take on that very important role. Now, when it comes to men, it's the same thing. And I did a podcast with a guy in Canada last year. Great guy, and I hate myself for not remembering his name right now, but it's on my website under media. But he was like, "I'm not a yard guy. I'm never going to work out in the yard. I hate the heat. It's not who I am." But he liked to cook. I was like, "Dude, you're my dream man, because if the weather's right, not in Las Vegas, Nevada, but if the weather's right, there's nothing I love more than the smell of fresh tilled earth. I love it. I can garden and work out in the yard all day long if it's cool enough." Okay. So see, you have a great pair there. You've got somebody who would prefer to be in the kitchen, and I prefer to be outside. And if I've got the energy, I'll clean up in the kitchen after he's done. But we just all need to be doing what makes us happy instead of doing what's expected of us. Because how many people do we know, moms and dads alike, people who have been married for 30 years, who are staying in it, but have no idea of what makes them happy anymore, no sense of self. I mean, it used to be, I'm from the South, the guys would go hunting. That would be their own time with their buddies, and that would be what they would do to get away and clear their head. I come from those people. I get that. But then your wife never had the opportunity to step away from the children or family and have her own time. It's tough. Right. I mean, everybody needs to be sure they're doing what's right for them so they can be healthy, because then you are a better parent. Then you are a better spouse when you're happy yourself. And that's what this book is really about. It's like, and I want to touch on this for David too. Just because a woman goes out at night with her girlfriends and is dressed up sexy because it makes her feel good and alive, doesn't mean she should have to endure sexual harassment, leering, guys, standing over her, looking down her blouse, making comments. It's her body. It's her right to feel beautiful and sexy and on top of the world. And it's that guy's right. He may do it through going to the game or having his friends over on Sunday afternoon and being loud and screaming at the screen. We all have different things we do that make us feel alive. right?
So
we need to give each other room to do that.
All right,
man.
give each other room. All right, we'll take that. Now, I want to get into something else that we talked about before the show, and you mentioned this. So, women, talk about the split. You can either be sexually intelligent. See if I remember. It was sexually intelligent, or what was the other one? Like just intelligent. Like what was it? Like you said you can either be one or the other. Embrace them. I'm horrible. We're on like I finished the Heaven's Hill's gone.
Look, pour yourself another drink, and I'm going to answer the question.
Heaven's Hill is empty.
Yeah.
It's Buffalo.
If you finish that one, then go to the next one, and I'm going to answer this question
because I'm curious about this.
The point, the book starts out and it explains. It talks about 1950s America, and it says you're either the smart girl or the sexy girl,
right?
And ne'er the two shall meet, right? You're the town tramp or you're the good girl, and ne'er the two shall meet. There's not an ounce of truth in that. I've known plenty of super intelligent women who have off the charts sex lives. Unless you're asexual, you are a sexual human being.
Right.
Period. And the fact that we're telling women you're not going to be taken seriously if you've got your blouse, 3 inches below your collarbone at work, or you're not going to be taken seriously if you're wearing lipstick. I mean, I've heard it all. And it's all absurd. I mean, the woman in the room is presenting herself how she's comfortable, how she feels most empowered. Listen to what she has to say. Watch what she has to produce. Make your judgments on her ability and what she's bringing to the table accordingly, not about how high her heels are or what color lipstick she's wearing. So that's the point of the term sexual intellectual female is a mergence of two types of women that were always considered contradictory, but they're not.
I would agree with that. I mean, my wife and I
toast to that.
What's that?
Have a cocktail? I want to toast to what you just said. We agree.
Cling. Because my wife and I, she always laughs at me. I love CBS Saturday Morning, and I it's not Dana Jacobs, it's Michelle Tafoya, I think is who it is, and I think she's a very intelligent woman. Her husband's like a New York senator or congressman, and I'm the guy who I always point to my wife. Look at her shoes. What has she got on for shoes today? Because they always match, and I'm always impressed by it. And she always wears stilettos. But I see what you mean. Like it is different today. It's the Velma and the Daphne from Scooby Doo. You could be Velma was always, very intelligent, but she was kind of frumpy, wore a turtleneck. She never could experience who she was as a woman. But if you ever notice, it was always a short skirt.
Yeah.
Whereas Daphne was always very, bubbly, very, kind of clueless to what was going on.
The ditzy blonde. I talk about that in the book.
Yeah. She was the ditzy blonde, and they weren't together. So now you brought up a point. Though, if she wants to wear, something plunging neckline and has this look, is that, and this is the only way I could think to ask this, and I love that I'm going to ask it this way. Is that an unfair weapon against men? I don't know how else that.
I love your power punches so much. They're great.
It really feels like it. Like as a man, there is no way that I can do something of that nature and not be arrested.
Oh, okay. So that's a good point. So I want to respond to this on 2 levels.
Please.
Okay. The first one is that fair to men? And my response to that is, that's your patriarchy talking, because nothing makes me sadder and madder than the fact that we've told guys all their lives that they're dumb when it comes to hot women and they have no control over themselves. That's the biggest lie any of us have ever been told.
There's 180,000 Marines. Probably 90% are men. We're dumb. We're dumb.
I don't buy that. Now I'll say this. I was in my 30s before I realized how really reactionary men are to women and their sexuality. I mean, I was a little shocked. And I was always a late bloomer.
So what was the thing that brought that to the forefront for you then? Like, what was it?
Watching women. I was living in Atlanta, so it was a little bit different atmosphere than the country sort of church atmosphere I had grew up in. And watching that firsthand, watching women use their sexuality to get what they wanted out of men. I've known women who have gotten dressed up to go out and say, I'm not going to buy a drink. I'm not going to buy a drink tonight. Men are going to buy my drinks. And they go out with that attitude. And that
works.
Oh, yeah. And I could never fathom that because I'm on the defensive. For me, having experienced what I did in my youth, I now don't accept drinks from strangers because I'm always worried about them slipping something in it or having that expectation. Now, I still have to deal with drama when I'm asked, can I buy you a drink? There's no good way to handle that as a woman. You're going to get grief either way. But I started to see in the 30s how women were aware of their sensuality. They were aware of the power that it held. Some women more than others. A lot of women will just use that to find the man to get married. And other women will use it for whatever they want, whether it's free travel or a better quality of life or what have you. But it's out there. And
now,
I can't say I feel sorry for men, Sean. I want to.
Don't feel sorry for us. We have asked for this shit. I want to
look at you and say, dude, you don't have a chance.
You're lost.
Sorry, you lost. It's brutal, but I don't feel that way because men still carry the power. You're still making $1 to my 72 to 78 cents.
But that's there's a whole thing about that. There's that data on that. And see, Regina, I think you and I could sit down for and have so many conversations because that's a whole nother thing where you get into, but is it really like that? Or is it that the money or the positions that we hold are different? There's a lot of different elements to that. But now you talking about the when you mentioned like going out and the drinks and everything, how much of that though is also human nature? Because I'm going to get my man, I'm going to get a husband, I'm going to entice someone. I'm going to, it's that animalistic ingrained mentality that we have that we're just, I used to tell people all the time, why do you, I used to use this as a line when I recruited for the Marine Corps many, many moons ago. Kid would be like, I'd be like, so why are you doing this, kid? And he'd be like, oh, I want to serve my country. I'm like, are you sure? And they'd be like, yeah. I'm like, you sure it isn't just to meet women? And they're like, what? I'm like, why do you have a job? To have money. What are you going to do with that money? You're going to impress a girl.
Yeah.
Why do you work out? Well, I want to be strong. Why? Doesn't do anything for you. Well, you trying to impress somebody? Well, yeah. And I was just, I'm like, look, this is the only reason you do anything, kid. It's the only reason you do anything is to impress someone that you're interested in. And as I've educated myself and gotten and matured, I would probably change that line today and say it's to meet someone to fall in love with or somebody that you find interesting. And that's, I hear what you're saying with those items, but if somebody, I guess that's the other side to it is, and I hate that I feel like I'm jibber jabbering over myself today, but you've got me thinking, like when you say about a woman going out and looking for drinks and, somebody's going to buy me drinks. Well, then aren't we also just saying that she's accepting whatever comes her way, good or bad, like just going hunting or fishing? I'm going to have some good ones come by. I'm going to have some fish I'm going to throw back, but I've accepted that if I put my pole in the water to go get a fish, whatever eats my bait, I have to deal with it.
And I have 2 points to make for that too. And that's, again, I love your comebacks tonight, Sean. They're fantastic and they're really helping us delve deep into this. And most people just skim the surface, She has a right to go out and live her life to the fullest and have a good time and not be drugged and not be raped.
Amen.
And just party and enjoy the night. That's her right as a human being. It's the guy's right to go out with his buddies and drink and yell at the football game on the screen and have a good time. We get into trouble when we think we have a right to tell someone else how to live or to their body. Whether it's the woman who grabs the guy's crotch as she walks into the club, the guy checking IDs, we were talking about that earlier, you remember? Yep. Okay. That's just as wrong as some guy reaching around you when you're playing pool and grabbing your breast.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you for saying it that way.
Yeah, nobody's asking for any of that. Buddy of mine in Vegas, his personality is pretty similar to mine. He's very flirty and fun on stage, very playful. And he's got all the women, especially the cougars, 40, 50, and 60-year-olds love him, you know? They're always all on him. And he was doing a show a few years back. And I've never worried about him being able to handle himself with the ladies because he loves the ladies, right? It's a non-issue. That's a perk. I'm standing behind him as he goes out into the crowd. He's working the crowd and singing during a show. And this woman stands up to hug him. She takes both of her hands, puts around on his derriere, and just grabs him full on. Now, my first reaction is to laugh. I'm laughing. And then he pulls and turns away from her, and I see the look on his face. And
like
he looked
shock or embarrassment?
He looked like a 5-year-old that had just been molested. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
He was completely repulsed. He's in a committed relationship. He's in love and he's happy. His woman's backstage. She had to see that. And I immediately felt horrible about laughing. That's the point I want to make to you and to David, because in the beginning you guys were like, feel so attacked. It feels like a,
right.
all the time. Man, this is human nature. We need to get past feeling attacked when stuff like this happens. And we just need to put it in our memory bank and learn it and reserve it for later. This was a great lesson for me because I'm sitting there, even in my 40s, going, hey, man, men are molested too. It happens. I just saw that emotion go over his face where he was completely degraded in a room of 500 people of his peers, where up until that moment, he was in complete control of the crowd. Not cool.
Not at all. And see, it's funny. Not funny like haha, but funny, interesting. So when I first read on, hey, I got Regina's going to come on. She's going to be talking about sexual intelligence and women's empowerment. In my mind, this subject was more about women can wear, using their sexual wilds or feminine wilds, as we say, to overpower men or gain position on men, or from an empowerment standpoint, or sexual intelligence, knowing more about, how to use that or what you're into and those type of things, the other side to it. Really, this is more about being comfortable with who you are and making sure that people around you respect you as a human. And I use that term human. I don't know if you went back and checked out any of our shows. We've had many drag queens on here because I love my Amanda Love and all their friends. We cover all subjects, all areas. We've even had people from Montana on here. I mean, does it get any more different than that? Many of them. But I just, it's very different, the concept here of your approach to a feminist idealism and those things. I want to, as we're bringing this full circle, so as a man, some of the things that I'm curious about is, am I still okay to open a door? Am I still okay to say, yes, ma'am? Am I still okay to what I would consider respectful? Is that still okay?
Again, love this question. I really have a lot of emotions about this. Being raised Southern, I still say yes, ma'am, and yes, sir. Now, in my introduction to Sexual Intellectual Female, I sort of dedicated to the transgender community. And I say, in honor of you, if you identify as a woman, that's honored here. And throughout the book, I spell woman, WOMXN, to be inclusive of transgendered women.
Okay.
Because that soul identifies as a woman, period. And we need to respect that and see her as that and love her for that. This is a great story to tell. I hope I don't get emotional during it, but
I need you to be
I've
emotional.
been a member of the LGBTQ community for almost 25 years. So I've had plenty of friends that were drag queens. And I made a mistake a few months ago in Vegas that literally haunted my heart for weeks. There was a woman I had met last year before things got shut down, who was a transgendered woman and who frequented a lounge I went to listen to some friends sing. And we had several conversations and would always make a point to say hey to each other. And on this particular night, I always tell her if she looks good, if I like her dress or what have you. This night she's wearing some smoking hot knee-high boots. And another woman came up and we were all having a conversation. Something was said about how great she looked. And I turned to the third woman and said, don't you just love his boots? And I was mortified.
Because you said his?
His instead of hers. And I just felt like the biggest schmuck in the entire world. And I stayed there, even though my face was blood red and I was humiliated. And I'm trying not to make the situation worse.
Right.
So I don't say, I mean hers. I just waited for the other woman to leave. And I put my arms around her and I hugged her. And I said, I'm so sorry. I said his instead of hers. And of course, she was an angel and was like, oh, no, it's okay. Don't worry about it. And I said, it matters.
Right.
It matters because this is someone that I know she can endure that, but it hurts her heart every time she has to endure that. It hurt mine to have made that mistake. And I had to process a lot of emotions. I could have taken the egomaniac way out and been like, it's too hard, screw it. I'm just not going to bother with it anyway. It's not my problem. I could be that person. It'd be a lot easier to be that person.
Right. It's a no-brainer at that point.
It's a no-brainer. That's the easy way out. And I was like, you know what? You can't. You humiliated yourself and you hurt her and you have to accept that. And in the future, you need to make yourself more aware. You need to slow down when you're talking. There's actually a physical reason. Women in perimenopause often forget words or mix them up. So to mix up his and hers has been very common for me the last couple of years. My roommate's constantly calling me out saying, you meant this, but you used another word that started with the same letter. Now, fortunately, she's a chiropractor. So she's like, don't trip out. You're going to be fine. This lasts for a few years.
She's a voodoo doctor.
She's a voodoo doctor. And she goes, she's a good one too. But she's like, this passes, you get that clarity again, but it's just where I'm at. But it wasn't worth me explaining that to this woman. I had to eat it in that moment. And so my point sharing that story with you is, David, you, all my men out there, stop feeling personally attacked. Stop beating yourself up for being a human being. You've had all these life experiences. We've all seen the same ads with hot women telling us what to buy, that's sexy and that's what we're supposed to be. We've all endured that. And we all carry those biases within us because there's a multi-marketing strategy that's been pushing that on us for decades. So don't kill yourself about it. What you can do in your life is build rapport and relationships with people that are different than you and get some understanding going on. We don't agree on everything, but I mean, this, and I don't want us to go down this road because it is a separate conversation.
Right.
The whole political thing, I've got friends who are Republicans.
You live in Georgia. Give me a break.
A lot of them from Texas. And then I have a lot of liberal friends, and I'm registered as an independent. And so I've got Republican friends that are like, Regina, you can't say this about this, and then you say this about this, because that's conservative and that's liberal. And I'm like, stop letting anybody tell you that you have to be in one frame of thought all the time, because that limits all of us. I'm like, politics is not a sports. It's not a ball team that you have to pick a side to win and bet on. That's not what it's about. You know, it's okay for you to have your own independent thoughts that don't fall under a party mentality. It's okay.
I have changed mine. I still vote libertarian because I still believe in the tenets, and then I watch the shows that show our version of the national conference, and then I go, oh, this isn't good. The Libertarian National Conference goes in like a Holiday Inn conference room, and it's just the saddest thing. But I see, I'm with you. Like, see, we're going down. Don't want to get too far down the political road, but I've always been the guy to go, if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck. It's a duck. So you know, treating people like humans. I've always wanted to be treated like a human. I've definitely had times in my life where I didn't fit the mold. And that may have even been, you know, looking back, I can tell you I don't know if I've ever told you. Might get a story today, Regina. You may get a story. I don't know if I know I've told this story, but I've never told this story on the show. So I joined the Marine Corps on my 17th birthday, July 20th, 1993. Because my mother drove me to the recruiter's office and let me sign up. And I don't know if I woke up that morning with the intention that that's what I was going to do. I don't remember. But that was my mother's intention of what she was going to take me to do on my 17th birthday. And I appreciate the fact she did it all these years later because I needed it. And it's funny you mentioned this towards the beginning of the show about manning up. I needed that extra male role models in my life to know how to do the right things as a man. And it might sound odd, you know, throughout this conversation to say that, but those things for me were being responsible, taking responsibility for your action. And I think today we still call it acting like a man, but it's an interchangeable term. And we don't have a term for it. You know, maybe say act like an adult would probably be the right term to use now. But that's what that was for me. If I wouldn't have went to the Marine Corps at 17 years old, got out of where I grew up at. I grew up in an area of Baltimore called Dundalk. I still love Dundalk. It's a very unique area, very, very blue collar. Probably half of the pictures you see on that website, things I see in Walmart, came out of the neighborhood I grew up in. It's a very, very blue collar area. So I needed that. But my mother's generation, your parents' generation, in her mind, I need my son to stand on his own 2 feet. So this is how this is going to happen. This is what he's going to go do. So that was me. And when I went to boot camp, folks, I was not the 200 pounds of sexiness you see today. If you're watching the video or, you know, listening to this deep Barry White-esque voice that you're listening to right now, I was 5'7.5" and weighed 127 pounds.
Oh, wow.
I was, you know, any skinnier, I'd have fallen through my own asshole and choked myself to death. You know, I was a little guy. So part of this was, what's up, Aaron, my man? Do you see Aaron's picture? Aaron is a world champion beard guy. Like his beard. Yep, that's actually Aaron's picture right there.
So how long is it currently, Aaron?
2 feet. 2 feet.
What's the longest it's ever been?
He'll have to tell us. Aaron, if you tell us how long it is. And then there's Rob. He's in the Rob was in the Army, so we talk slow for him. We take our time with Rob. But you know, I tell that story only because, and look, there's my son. And there's my son, Sean. Barry White. Yeah, whatever, son. You wouldn't be as cool as you are if it wasn't for your father. But you know, I talk about these things because I understand what you mean. That now as I'm hearing it and kind of tying things together, I was probably part of that patriarchy, type mentality that as a man, this is what I need to do. These are the things I need to do. These are the things I need to teach my children. And I've had to relearn a lot of things. My son Tyler educates me all the time on different things. Like, Dad, you can't do that. He's 17. You can't do that. You can't say that. My best friends, Jeff and Ken, they educate me all the time. I grew up in an area. If you ever get a chance to look up Baltimore, the Baltimore phrase is hun. My mother called everyone hun. You grew up in Georgia. How many times have you referred to someone as sweet or sweetheart?
Honey. I call people honey. And I tried to limit it nowadays, but it still comes out. And I always worry, especially with women. If I say it to women, they think I'm being condescending. And that's not my intention. But again, that's our life experience. It's a part of who we are.
It is.
And I want us to do a better job of giving people a little bit of leeway.
That's a great point there. Understanding where people are from. And as long as it's not in an abusive way where somebody's not like, hey there, hon, bring your ass over here and sit down on my lap.
Yeah.
Well, that's abusive. But I go to a restaurant with my mom, and it could be a male waiter, it could be a female waiter. It doesn't matter. She's going to go, hon, I need, sweetheart, I could use. That's going to be the conversation, which is where I grew up. We even have back home where I grew up a thing called Hun Fest.
I didn't have a Hun Fest.
You got to go
to Hun Fest.
You got to go to Hun Fest and John Waters. Like, you know all those John Waters movies? You a John Waters fan?
No.
Cry Baby, Serial Mom.
Okay.
And that's all John Waters.
Okay.
All those movies are about Baltimore. That's what it looks like there. That's what we grew up with. I have pictures of my grandmother. I have my picture of my grandmother with a beehive hairdo, like straight up. That thing had to be like 10 to 12 inches off her head. The woman was incredible. We called her G.I. Judy because she barked orders.
My mom had that in a wig.
My grandmother had wigs.
Yeah.
It was a thing.
We had wigs in the South.
Oh, it was such a thing. See, I missed this. See, we can, again, hard left. I love Atlanta. You've had to have had a Scotch egg before. Have you had a Scotch egg?
I have not, because I went from Crown to tequila. That was my transition over my drinking career.
No, Scotch egg is a hard boiled egg wrapped in sausage and then deep fried.
You're making that up. I've never heard of that.
Scotch egg. Had the first one in Buckhead.
You're making that up.
Nope. Had the first one in Buckhead. Scotch egg is an amazing, amazing thing.
What restaurant? Where at?
I was in Buckhead. I actually don't know what the restaurant was. I just remember it had like a back area. If my buddy Terrell was with me, we used to just go to restaurants. We went to one of my favorite is a place called, see, Rob even said it. It's true. We went to one called Palookaville in Atlanta, which is all about corn dogs in a 50s theme. You can get a corn dog out of anything, and they hand batter the corn dogs right in front of you. And then they do adult milkshakes, like milkshakes with liquor in them in Atlanta.
You've been to places I haven't been to, and I'm from there.
One of the best spots was obviously West Egg on Sundays does pimento cheese grits on Sundays.
Oh, yeah. I have heard of those.
We went to Taco. So you know how I found all my restaurants, and this is completely sidebar from women's empowerment. I'm empowering your bellies for a minute, folks. I sat on an airplane in Atlanta. I worked for a major railroad corporation at the time, and I was sitting on an airplane, and the gentleman next to me was, what is that county? Is it Duval? What's the county for Atlanta? DeKalb. Duval's in Florida. DeKalb County assistant district attorney. And we were sitting next to each other. And I was like, yeah, I'm in Atlanta. I was like, I love to eat different restaurants. He goes, really? I said, yeah, you got any recommendations? And we sat there and he gave me like a list of places like Fox Brothers.
Yeah.
And all these Atlanta like restaurants. Gladys's is chicken and waffles at Gladys's.
I mean, that's it.
It was just amazing. That's where Terrell and I, some homeless guy tried to like get us to not park in an empty parking lot. He's like, man, they can't park there. You got to park around it. I'm like, I'm not following you around the corner, crazy person. This is not happening. So we're going to get this thing to an end because I just find it completely fascinating. And I promise you, Regina, we could sit here and talk about this all night. Because it's just such an interesting topic to me because I'm always and this is probably the best way to put this. Gentlemen, you don't have to feel attacked. You don't have to feel like somebody's coming at you. We just have to be conscious of what we're doing and saying. We're not frat boys. We're not still in the service where, God, if we could talk about it afterwards, some of the shit I used to say when I first got out and people were like, you can't say that. I'm like, what are you talking about? I can't say that. I'm not talking about you personally.
We've all talked our fair share of smack. Come on now.
But that's what it all really sounds like to me is it's really about just being conscious of what you say and treating people as other humans. Am I on spot?
You nailed it. That is my most important gift out of all of this, and I love that you reiterated it. We're not going to get anywhere if we attack each other. We're not going to get anywhere if we beat each other ourselves up and think it's just too much. Forget it. I'm going to stay in the same cocoon I've lived in all my life because it's easier that way, and forget everybody else. Allow yourself some room to grow and expand and try to understand and accept people, because my perceptions in life are different because of what I've experienced, as are yours. And so nobody should come at me judging me for the little things I do in life, like using my cart to block a man that I know is about to come at me. Regina, why do you not go down an aisle if a man's there half the time? Because I get a vibe.
Right.
If it ain't good, I walk the other way. And that's just me doing me, protecting me. So men shouldn't take that personally. And we should all do the best job that we can of protecting one another. So for David, if he's at a bar and a woman's looking hot,
get her number.
He should try not to leer. I'm not going to say because he's not cute. I mean, Sean said it. I wouldn't say that. I'm just going to say try not to leer and be more respectful. But one thing I want you to know is I have never turned down or felt better than I have when I have received a quality compliment. And it doesn't matter if it's from a 25-year-old or it's a 65-year-old. When somebody says to me, ma'am, I just have to tell you, you look amazing in that suit. Ma'am, I don't want to offend you in any way, but I just want you to know you are stunning. There are ways that you can tell women that you think they're attractive where you are going to leave them feeling good about themselves and maybe make their week. There are ways that you can talk to them that it's going to make them feel degraded or scare them. They're like, is this person going to follow me in my car? So just try to learn to communicate in a respectful way that's going to be received in a positive light.
I'm trying not to, because in my head, all I can think of is using a line of me like, hey, babe, that's a really nice suit you got there. Like, delivery is everything, gentlemen.
Delivery is everything. No grunting.
Yeah,
Amanda says you can grunt. She likes it, but she's rare. She's a rare bird.
Do not walk past a woman and just go, like, if she responds to that, you need to marry her immediately. Take her to Vegas and go marry her, because nobody else is going to respond to that.
Sean, if I didn't see him coming, I might would have hit him. You know what I'm saying?
Like, that shit would scare the daylights out of you. Like, you're just walking along and somebody's like, what the fuck is that? What the fuck was that?
I will punch you in the throat.
She's going to throw punch.
And then his wife and kids come around the corner. He's laying on the ground, writhing in pain.
Like, that's even the better part is that, like, my man. So, and just as we go back to that story, for grunted at you in the Rosses, you weren't the first woman he grunted at. And the more important thing to know about this is if you weren't the first one that he grunted at, it worked with someone.
He's married.
See that? Salut, he's married. He walked past that woman and was like, she was like, It was just an entire conversation.
I just saw mates grunting at each other. Is that wrong?
That's it. It's just a bunch of grunting, and the next thing you know, a new Georgia baby was born. God, oh, it's so amazing. So we're gonna get ready. We're gonna put a bow on this thing, folks. We're gonna wrap it up. Obviously, I'm gonna say it a couple more times. PersonalEmpowermentPublishing.com. Everything is spelled properly. There's no extra letters, nothing changed. PersonalEmpowermentPublishing.com. No underscores, no dashes, no haberdasheries, no anythings whatsoever. PersonalEmpowermentPublishing.com.
You can buy the book there or on Amazon.
There or Amazon. Any book tours anywhere where they could see you around? I know you're in Keeping It Weird right now, Portland. We can all see that over your right shoulder. Keep It Weird in Portland. I still want to go out to the left coast. It's the other way. See, I do the same shit all the time. I still want to go out there only because I want to go to up to Washington and God, I can't think of the name. Puget Sound and try gooey duck.
It is really incredibly beautiful country. I think that you would enjoy it. I can't testify to the food yet. Let me spend some more time up here, and I'll give you my opinion on whether.
Are you moving up there completely?
Yeah. I've made the move.
So that's like a whole nother thing.
It is.
That's a whole nother conversation. Yeah. Like, so you just were like, you've never lived there. Did you visit there beforehand?
Oh yeah.
Okay, I was making sure that you weren't like, the brochure looks really nice. Fuck it, I'm moving.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
But
no, I had visited a couple of times a year for several years, so I knew that I liked it, and I would come up and do hikes and that kind of thing, and just started applying for jobs. And I'm interviewing with a couple of places right now. One of them is a university, and I shouldn't talk too much about that. The other one's an architecture.
We'll save it.
But
we'll static it out. Nobody can hear that.
But yeah, so I'll get something quickly because I have a lot of marketing content experience, and I'll keep writing on the side. But writing is my passion.
That's so
awesome. I love it.
That's so awesome. So we know where we can find you. As we got to remind all of our listeners and viewers, as always, you can find us on Instagram at the Above the Bar Podcast. Twitter is at Above the Bar 4. Email theabovethebarpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on all those things. Next week, folks, if you get it, make sure you tune back in. All the people that Miss Regina brought to the show. Next week, we have a director, a horror movie director and actor. I don't know why I keep bringing. I'm like, there's a whole genre of horror. Do you have a genre of horror movie you will not watch?
I actually don't watch any horror movies.
None.
I'm extremely sensitive. If you have a movie where a woman's being beaten or raped or kids are being hurt, like I'll get up and walk out of the theater. I can't deal. I don't watch them at all.
How about horror movies? Like Conjuring or none of those? Nothing?
The only one I've ever seen, and I'm not sure if you would consider it horror, is Cujo. Do you remember Cujo?
Absolutely, Cujo was scary. Fuck a bunch of dogs after that shit. Well, next week is a gentleman, Neil DeMonte. He is a director, actor. He's going to come on and we're going to talk about horror movies and his upcoming movies. So make sure everyone gets a chance to tune in next week. It should be a very interesting day. So as we're getting ready to tie this thing up and put a bow on it, as I remind you, like I do all my guests, this has just become a thing. Don't log off after we go off air. We got it. I don't watch. Yep. He doesn't watch. Tom doesn't. Tom, I wouldn't call it that way, but he doesn't watch the Saw movies. He can't make those decisions. His description of it, I'm not even reading on the air. You're going to have to come find the video version, folks, to read what Tom's description of the Saw movies are. Ain't reading that. How dare you? And Regina's laughing at him. Don't give him any support.
I'm sorry. Don't
support him. Don't support him in his bad habits.
My sense of humor. I mean,
don't support him in his bad habits.
It doesn't mean I'm a bad feminist.
No, you're not. Look, I'm going to tell you right now. I promise you, my idea of a feminist was burning bras, armpit hair, and, doing shots. Well, you might do shots of tequila now at this point.
Yeah.
We know that. But it was the burning bras. It was the screaming, the hollering, like opening a door, trying to be a gentleman, and somebody being like, fuck that, close that door, asshole. And like, that was my idea of a feminist at this point. And you have definitely changed my outlook of it. And I thank you for that. So you get the last word. And what is the last word for everyone, Miss Regina?
It should be better than this, but this is my last word. I know when a man opens a door, whether or not he's doing it to be gently or to check out my derriere. I know. And that's where we're going to leave it.
And she knows. All righty, folks, be sure to push your stool in.
This has been an Earplug Podcast presentation. Found on earplugpodcast.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and wherever your favorite podcasts are found.